Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you may be. Today, we're really excited to talk to you about writing and to share with you some of our most recent thoughts around writing and composition. So, today's workshop is called Reimagining Writing. How can we empower students as composers? My name is Joy Verbon. I have spent about the last 20 plus years in education, teaching first as a classroom teacher for classrooms through kindergarten students up to middle school to eighth grade. And then I moved on to literacy coaching work. And most recently, I'm an assistant principal in primary at the American School Foundation in Monterrey, Mexico. Literacy is my passion. Writing is something I'm extremely passionate about, and how to amplify the voices for all students as writers, for our multilingual students, for our students with learning differences, so that every child has a way to share their voice and to share the stories that they hold inside of them. As we get started this morning, I'm going to invite you to pick an instrument of your choice. You may be someone who's very comfortable with a pencil and a pen and a piece of paper, or you may be someone who prefers to take a voice note across your phone. If you can just grab any instrument that you're comfortable with very quickly, I'll ask you to use it in just a little bit. I'm going to pass the mic over to Lisa, who's going to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Joy. Welcome. I also want to welcome and thank you for spending some time with us today for this conversation. We know that we're all maxed out on screen time lately, so it really is a privilege to have you here today. My name is Lisa Stone, and like Joy, I have been in education for over 20 years. During that time, I have had a variety of roles: homeroom teacher, grades 3 to 8, literacy coach as well, where Joy and I met, and assistant principal of curriculum instruction as well. Currently, through a bit of a plot twist, I am third grade teacher at the American School Foundation of Monterrey, Mexico. I am loving it, but I'm also learning a lot. I'm relearning a lot during this experience, and I'm going to have a chance to talk to you about my learnings later on in the workshop. I think it's noteworthy that Joy and I have spent the majority of our careers with English language learners as well. Before we continue, we do invite you to tweet out any questions, any comments, any additional ideas while you're watching this, or later when you're mulling it over at a later time. You will see on your screen the hashtag, the Ed Collab Gathering. We ask that you use that in any tweets. And of course, feel free to use our Twitter handles in any of your comments. Definitely look forward to hearing from some fellow educators. Okay, Joy, I will give it back to you.
Thank you, Lisa. So we'll get started. Today, we're going to land on a few big ideas. So we're really going to be moving from concepts to composition. And so we'll spend a little time thinking about perspectives on writing. Then we'll move into some student work, some classroom compositions, and finally talking about some instruments that empower composers. So our perspectives on writing. Remember, I asked for that instrument a little bit earlier. I'm going to ask you to find that. That might be next to you. And there's 2 questions. I'm going to invite you to take just about a minute to ponder, maybe take a few notes of some key words or phrases that really resonate when you hear these questions. And these questions are: what does writing mean to you? And what is good writing? So it will just be quiet for a moment as you take a moment to record or compose that writing in some way, those ideas around good writing. Okay, maybe just a few more moments, writing those final thoughts down or composing those final thoughts in some way. Okay, so this same question we also asked of our teachers, and we found that largely our elementary teachers, when asked this question, landed on four bigger categories. And teachers, when they spoke to what writing meant to them and what was good writing, a lot of teachers spoke to the art of writing. So, having words become art, having it as a positive outlet, a focus, and coming from the heart. So, lots of passion in writing. Many teachers also spoke to expression of feelings, of learnings for themselves and others, both academically and creatively. Other categories that we found that teachers commonly spoke to, and I invite you to take a look back at your words and see, did some of your words land in art? Would you describe some of your words in expression or maybe quality? Some teachers spoke to quality. And when I say quality, I think kind of the language that we might anticipate in a mini lesson. Writers do um, begin with a strong idea. The writers add supporting details. That's kind of the language the teachers used as well. Talk to engaging the reader and having a purpose. All of this language we often find in the rubrics that describe the writing that we share with children. And finally, in the content, that it was honest, purposeful, free, the communication was clear, and that it included voice. So our teachers, we found, heavily spoke to the artistic side, or I say the expressive side of writing. So then we thought, okay, if this is what our teachers say, then our students, when we ask the same questions, we might anticipate that they may give us similar answers. Let's take a look at what a few students say. Let's start with a kindergarten student.
Good writing is having lots of vowels and lots of words. And a long sentence.
Okay, so we could hear lots of vowels, lots of words, a long sentence. So when we think back to those categories, we hear some, a hint to like longer sentences, maybe more fluency in our quality. When we think to those letters, those vowels, those words, we hear a lot about the conventional aspects of writing. This makes a lot of sense for a kinder student who's developmentally thinking, putting symbols into print, right? I need letters. I need to make some vowels in those letters because I know that vowels make words. And then from there, I'm going to try and put that into a sentence, into a full sentence. Let's see what a child a little bit older might say to us. Let's take a look at a third grade student. What do they say writing means to them? What is good writing?
A good writing for me is something with capital letters, period, exclamation mark, commas, and quotations, and something that you can explain it clearly.
We heard capital letters, periods, exclamation marks, commas, quotation marks, and then something that it speaks to clear communication. When I go back to the categories that our teacher spoke to, I art and expression I don't hear as clear. I definitely hear some more convention work, right? Something I might see in a rubric when I think about the quality. And I do hear some work around the content when it says clear communication. So again, it sounds like punctuation or conventions is that heavy emphasis. And then yes, I want to have some clear communication. Let's see if a fifth grade student will give us a little more information that mirrors what our teachers and maybe yourself, wherever you may be, also said was good writing or what writing meant to you.
A good writing piece, in my opinion, is one that when you start reading it, it hooks the reader and also has a lot of explanation and detail. One that can have good grammar and punctuation. and you can learn by it.
Our fifth grade student gave us that hooking the reader. You may have heard that even in your own mini lessons, right? It may even be on rubrics that you use in your classroom. Explanation and details, good grammar and punctuation, and it has a purpose, right? Something they can learn by. So as I think across our student samples and I think across our teachers' voices, we've discovered something that you probably already know. There seems to be a discrepancy between teachers' belief in practice and students' belief in practices. And I invite you at this time also to look at your own words that you may have recorded or jotted in some way or another. Did they land closer to art or closer to expression, or did they land heavier in maybe quality or in conventions? Um, if we do believe that writing is an art, and Lisa and I do both believe that, and that's part of the reason we're here today to talk about our students as composers, as artists, let's explore how this might reflect in what our kids are saying and doing. And I'm going to invite Elisa to go ahead and share a little bit about what students are saying and doing.
Thank you. So as I mentioned at the beginning during my introduction, this year has been a year of learning and relearning for me. And in fact, it was pretty much my relearning this year that is the impetus of this workshop today. And I also think that my learning, my experiences could actually give some insight into the discrepancy that Joy is referring to, that why is it that teachers believe writing is one thing and kids are hearing or thinking that writing is another thing. So before I start to share my experience, I will give a tiny bit more background about methodology. As practitioners in the classroom, Joy and I both utilize the writing workshop model. And as literacy coaches, we were very strong advocates of using this framework. So we truly believe in writing workshop as a model, simply because it empowers the student as a writer. It gives writers choice and voice. It allows for a little bit of teacher talk time with the explicit instruction, but then also gives us a very student-centered approach in that heart of the workshop, which is conferring. So that is why we strongly believe in writing workshop, and it's what I've been using again in third grade as a homeroom teacher, as a teacher of writing. Now here's the learning. I've discovered that that is not enough. Those conditions are not enough to truly uncover what a writer knows and is able to do. So as we move forward today, and as I explain myself a little bit more, I'm going to ask us all to look beyond writing as pen and paper, beyond writing as a clickety-clack of a keyboard, and to truly think of writing as a composition of ideas with the purpose to communicate. So we know as teachers, many of us, maybe not all of us, but many of us are bound by standards. This is an example of a standard, a third grade standard for informational writing from Common Core. Some of you, it may look familiar to. And this basically outlines the expectations of a third grade student in informational writing. This was the driver of my recent informational writing unit, where students tapped into their expertise and wrote teaching books. So I expected, based on this standard, students to convey information in a very clear way, to introduce their topic, to provide visuals to aid comprehension, to really stretch out the information by including details, definitions, facts, ensuring that there were linking words to create the sequential flow of the text, and of course to sum it up in some concluding way. In a moment, we are going to look at a piece of writing from that unit. So after 15 sessions or 15 lessons during this unit, where we went through the entire writing process, where I gave mini lessons, where I modeled with my own writing, where kids had access to mentor texts, where kids spoke to each other for feedback, and I gave feedback. This is a piece, a published piece after all of that, after 15 sessions in that unit, from a student who we'll call Andy. Andy is a 9-year-old grade 3 student, and I will mention he is an English language learner. So just for those of you who may not know what Roblox is, let me give you a little bit of a background to that. It's a video game in which there are lots of other games you can play. You can select other games within the actual Roblox. And this is Andy's work because he is an expert on video games. So this is what he produced. I'm going to invite us for a moment just to take a look at it and to be thinking about, is this, according to the Common Core standard that we just looked at, is this piece meeting expectations for informational writing? I'll just give you a moment to take a look. Okay, so let's dissect this and let's see his introduction. In Roblox, there's a lot of games, but there's some that cost credits. So if I ask myself, has he introduced his topic here? I know he's talking about Roblox, but at this point, I'm not sure what he's going to mention about it. So I might, give him the benefit of the doubt, he is introducing his topic. Then let me continue. And so a game I play is Build a Boat. This game is about real life, and you need to build your boat. Okay, so now he's given me a detail about a game that he plays, Build a Boat. And then he actually tucks in a little extra detail because he tells us that Build a Boat is about real life. And what do you need to do in that game? Well, you need to build a boat. So there is some semblance of details there. Let's move on. A second paragraph. I was, playing in a game of Build a Boat, and I was doing my boat and it disconnected me because the internet went out and I didn't save my boat. So I was sad. As his teacher, I know what he was attempting there. I know he was approaching to add more details with a mini story. But I'm guessing that you, seeing this for the first time, this feels very disconnected. So definitely, we don't have the linking words. We're wondering where this fits in. Let's continue with the third paragraph. He said, there's more games in Roblox, like Roblox Got Talent, Build and Survive. And then he lists some other games within Roblox. So right away, I'm thinking to myself, who's he? Even though I know that Andy tried to bring in quotations from other experts. That was the attempt there. But it's not connected to the rest of the writing. It doesn't feel like he's clearly conveying the information that he has. We don't see necessarily any linking words. There are no visual aids, and he doesn't conclude the piece. So, admittedly, what I glean at this moment in seeing this composition, that Andy was not yet meeting the expectations of a third grade informational writer. So now what we're going to do is look at another composition on the same topic of Roblox. And I'm going to ask us to do the same thing. Let's just take a look and see if this piece meets expectations according to Common Core. I'll give you a moment to take a look at it. So is this composition meeting the standard? Well, let's take a look. Let's dissect it again. So this is how you're going to play Roblox on mobile, iOS, cell phone, or iPad. Boom. I know exactly what this piece is going to be about. I'm going to be taught to play Roblox. So the introduction, check. First, you need to go to into Roblox. So there's my linking word. So very sequential. It's starting to make sense. So I know that I'm going to be taught how to play. This is the first thing I need to do. And just in case there's a visual aid to let me know which app is Roblox. So we've got check, check, check. Secondly, you're going to want to join the game. In this case, we're going to use build a boat for treasure as the example. And then a little bit more details given. You could play games with other people, other friends, but for this purpose, we're going to just do it individually. So it's just giving some tips, some extra information there. I'm very clear what this writer has said. And for this purpose, we're not playing with friends. So we go back to, okay, so you've clicked on Roblox, and then you need to click on the green button. Then wait for it to load. And then we want to start walking. And this is how you start walking. You'll notice down the last sentence, with the left hand, with this finger, you're going to walk and do it in front like this. So remember, English language learner, I don't think he was able to retrieve the word for thumb, but he clearly gave us left hand and a visual aid for us as learners to understand he means the thumb and to do this. So there's more visual aids for us. Now, I feel very comfortable stating that this student has met expectations for informational writing, has all of the key ingredients. I am not lost, and I have learned from this information. What if I told you, however, that this is Andy's writing as well, that this is Andy's composition as well? It's the same student. There was no additional instruction, and there was no additional time where he grew as a writer. There was no feedback given. This was a first draft based on a conversation I was having with some kids who were trying desperately to teach me online, remember, Roblox, how to play. And I think he just got so frustrated, he just said, oh, I'm going to make Miss Lisa a tutorial. So this is him spending 10 minutes in producing this composition. And in fact, that's not the whole composition. He not only has he improved in quality, he's improved in quantity. He's composed a lot more information in this tutorial. So, of course, I'm struck. Why the difference? You know, I thought he wasn't yet meeting expectations of a third grade informational writer. I look at this and think, oh my goodness, of course he's got everything. So what really made the difference? Probably we're thinking the authenticity. He's making this for a purpose. He's composing this to help his old teacher learn a video game. So that he has the interest, which he did. He had the choice of topic before. Now he's doing it with more purpose. He's choosing to do this rather than being told. Now, what if I told you as well that what you were seeing on screen is actually not how he shared this composition with me? I'm going to show you now how he actually shared it. We'll take a listen.
So this is how you're gonna be able to play Roblox in mobile, iOS, cell phone, or iPad. So first you need to go into Roblox. Secondly, you're gonna want to join a game. In this case, I'm gonna use Build a Boat for the treasure. So you're gonna select your game, or if there's other friends playing, you click there and then you join the game. But in this case, I'm not gonna play with friends. So first, you need to click the game you want to play, then click the green button. Then you wait it to load. So then what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go and where you can start walking. So with the left hand, you're gonna try with this finger, you're gonna walk and you're gonna do it to the front, so like this. And then to move your camera with the right hand, with this finger, you're gonna move it. So then you're gonna try to walk and move it, and then you're walking and moving. So then you're gonna try to jump. This is the button of jump. So then you click it and then you jump. So then what you're going to do is go and do whatever you need to do. So in this case, you need to build a boat. So here I'm trying to build a boat. You click where you want to place the block, and then click where you want to place the block, and then click the check mark. And repeat that until you want your boat big enough.
I've watched that so many times because it just really fills my heart with joy, but also a little embarrassed because, as I admitted, I didn't think he was there yet. I didn't think he was able at this point to choose a topic he's an expert on and write in a very clear, coherent, detailed way about that topic. So when I showed you it scribed, what he in the previous slide, I showed you that I had actually scribed from that video. And part of that, because like I said, he composed a lot more than he did initially in his published piece. Pardon me. So when we saw it in traditional writing, we concluded that this tutorial met the standard. Yet he clearly possesses the skill of informational writing, conveying information in a coherent way. So how is it that I didn't see it initially? How is it that I didn't uncover that yes, check, he has these skills? Because I inadvertently limited my kids. I limited them by saying, we're writing a teaching book. And even though there's all that choice of what to do as an author in your teaching book, I asked them to do it within the limits of Google Slides because it looked more like a book. And unfortunately, within those limitations, Andy wasn't able to shine. his talents, his skills for an informational composer, they weren't uncovered. So that makes Joy and us wonder, how often as educators are our limitations that we're imposing on kids clouding what they truly know and what they're able to do. So at this point, I think that I'm going to ask Joy to speak to a few things, because I suspect a lot of people are wondering, so are Lisa and Joy saying that kids can only do videos and that's writing? Or, or maybe you're questioning, that's not writing, that's not writing. So Joy's gonna take a little bit of time to kind of review some of the thoughts that we've been massaging during my learning year as third grade. So I will pass it over to you, Joy, and I will share my screen for you.
Thank you, Lisa. We are landing on a few big questions and a few big wonderings. How can we empower students as composers? And are we getting the right instruments in the hands of students? We know that the question that might be pondering, the biggest question might be, because there could be many, of course, but what about the standards, right? The standard says it's a writing standard. And we would encourage you to create harmony with these expectations. As Lisa shared the pieces by Andy and the criteria with the informational piece, it talks about an introduction, about details, about visual aids, about linking words, transitions, and a conclusion. We are arguing today that a composition can take many forms beyond pencil and paper. We need to look beyond the discrepancy of what happens when I only use a pencil to what I can do when I can compose in other ways. We saw the distortion between what Andy did with the pencil and paper versus what Andy did with a video tutorial. We saw the skills, we saw the evidence of the skills of what it means to compose informational text. Yes, we saw a digital text, not a written text, but we saw that Andy has those skills. And we would argue that we need to be very careful when we're identifying skills in students, that we also remember that writing has a whole nother set of skills to it when I actually physically put my pencil across the paper or type on the keyboard. Not only am I, as a student, trying to hold on to the skills in the standard and in the benchmark around informational writing, but I'm also working with visual motor integration. I'm also working with sounds and representing the sound I hear when I sound out the word to the sound I put in print. I'm encoding. I'm also thinking about spacing, my fine motor skills, my pencil grip, my laterality from left to right in composing a text. Depending on the writer, I could also be thinking about spacing, about language. How do I say those words and how do I get that across? So there's many, many skills that we're asking students to do when we ask them to transcribe thoughts into symbols and into words. And when we ask for that with a pencil or across a keyboard, there's many more skills we're asking for. So what we would argue is we're not saying throw out the standards. We're not saying ignore that it's a writing standard. What we are saying is be very thoughtful of the layers of skills that we're asking to determine if a child can do something. Andy can compose informational text. His written piece shows a different story. As a teacher, if we know that he can produce this orally, then we're looking at a different strategy and a different way to move him as a composer than if we land on only a pencil and paper piece of evidence like his first one, where we're unsure that, as Lisa mentioned, multiple sessions, a unit of study was successful for Andy. So what are we arguing or proposing today? We're going to ask you that you're thoughtful of when you're conducting your symphony of learners. When Andy, it's teaching us, when Andy had the right instrument, he was empowered, he created a successful composition. He met the standards in one moment, one draft with no need for revisions or editing. This is a clear argument why writers need to have different ways to compose, why students have to have different ways to compose, and teachers should view composition as a broader concept. We know that in the Common Core, that it tells us that each grade is going to have students who are still acquiring English. I would argue for all of our students, they're still acquiring English, especially when we're landing on amplifying vocabulary and we're landing on conventional standard English and all of the commas, quotation marks, and things that we heard students speaking to. And the Common Core reminds us that it's possible for them to meet the standards in reading, writing, speaking, and listening without displaying native-like control of conventions and vocabulary. And I would probably gather to say, myself and maybe many of you on the other side of the screen, there are times when I still need to Google how to conventionally write something in English, despite the many, many years that I've used the language. So as we can move forward and we think about the widest possible range of students to participate fully from the outset and permitting them to compose successfully, we ask you to remember that penmanship is not what writing is about. Memory is not what writing is all about. Spelling is a convention of writing. Writing is not all about spelling. Fine motor skills is what writing is not all about. What we would argue that writing is about is listening to students, amplifying those voices, making sure that it's authentic and purposeful, making sure they have the media to show what they can do, be it voice to text, be it typing, be it writing, be it acting it out, whatever it might be, to see where we can wiggle out the information we need to see if the skills for composition and composing narrative, informational, and opinion writing are there. Can they compose those pieces? So our job is getting the kids the right instruments in their hands so that we can empower them versus constrain them. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Lisa for some closing thoughts.
Well, first of all, Joy, I want to thank you for being my sounding board and for listening to my relearning this year and trying to dissect what actually happened with Andy. I also invite all the educators, if you have not already reflected on the possibility that you may also inadvertently be limiting or clouding if a student is actually able to or actually possesses the skills that you're assessing, is something you are inadvertently doing, clouding your assessment. And then from that, truly thinking about what other ways can I glean this information. From there, and if you are a school who insists that writing is paper and pen or on the keyboard, then if you have them display it in one form, like Andy did on his YouTube video, you've got a very short bridge to getting him to that more traditional definition of writing. So I do invite us all to reflect on our practices, to open our minds to what writing is, which also makes me think, Joy, if we told Andy that this composition met expectations for our teaching book unit. I wonder if his definition of what is writing would change. I wonder what he would say rather than the conventions that most kids talked about in our previous videos. I wonder if it would be more reflective of what teachers believe writing is, that purposeful expression of voice, sharing information and content, the quality that our teachers and probably you named as the definition of what is writing. So I think I can just leave with the suggestion that, hey, let's not give the tuba player a piano and say, show us you're a musician, because that's what I did to Andy. I restricted his instrument and he didn't play to the best of his ability. I am going to invite you once again to share your thoughts, your questions, your any additional dialogue you would like to have. Please feel free to tweet us. Our handles are there at Joy Verbon, at Lisa La Regia. And please include the hashtag, the EdCollab Gathering, in any of your tweets. We also, on behalf of educators everywhere, thank you for the job you are doing and you've done in this, especially you've done in this last very challenging year. We see it, we feel it, and we appreciate it, just in case you don't hear that enough. So thank you very much. And we hope to see you online very soon.